It was neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. That is the famous verdict the philosopher Voltaire gave to the Holy Roman Empire, and for a long time, history class has treated this place as a joke. A chaotic, dysfunctional monster that somehow stumbled through history for 1,000 years. But was it really just a mess? Or was it actually a misunderstood stroke of genius? You are watching Be Explained, and this is the mess that made Europe. If you look at a map of Europe today, it makes sense. It's clean. You know exactly where one country ends and the next one begins. But if you look at a map of Central Europe in the year 1500, you don't see a country. You see a headache. It looks like someone dropped a stained glass window on the floor, shattered it into 1,000 pieces, and then tried to glue them back together in the dark. There are tiny specks of land inside other specks of land. Borders that don't make any sense. It is absolute cartographic border gore. To understand how this monstrosity functioned, you have to completely unlearn what a country is. In France or England, the king was the boss with a capital B. If he wanted a tax, he got it. If he wanted an army, he drafted it. If you lived there, you knew who was in charge. The Holy Roman Empire was different. It wasn't a monolith. It was a patchwork quilt sewn by a madman. At its height, it contained nearly 1,800 separate territories. And I don't mean provinces. I mean semi-independent states. Some were huge, powerful players like Bavaria, Saxony, or Brandenburg. These guys had their own armies and courts. But they were the exception. Most of the empire was made up of tiny, bizarre little units. There were imperial knights whose entire kingdom was just a single castle, and the hill it stood on. If you walked to the bottom of their driveway, you were in a foreign country. There were free imperial cities run by merchants and guilds, totally ignoring the nobles around them. There were abbots and bishops who ruled over land like kings, wearing robes instead of crowns, and sitting on top of this pile of confusion was the emperor. Now, you might think being emperor sounds great, but he wasn't an absolute dictator. He was more like the stressed-out CEO of a massive, unruly company where all the regional managers have their own private armies, hate the guts of each other, and can legally ignore his orders. He couldn't just demand things. He had to negotiate for everything. So how do you even choose a leader for a mess like this? Well, you don't inherit it. You get elected. This is one of the wildest parts of the system. Unlike almost every other monarchy in history where the crown went from father to son, the Holy Roman Emperor had to campaign for the job. In 1356, a document called the Golden Bull set the rules. It decided that only 7 people in the whole empire mattered. These were the prince-electors. 3 were archbishops, basically super priests, and 4 were secular rulers. When an emperor died, these 7 men would meet in Frankfurt to vote for the next one. Imagine the drama. This turned the Holy Roman Empire into a game of massive bribery, diplomatic chess, and backroom deals. Candidates would spend fortunes buying votes, promising land, and making secret alliances just to get that crown. It sounds unstable, right? It sounds like a recipe for disaster. But here is the twist. This system actually worked. Because the emperor was weak, no single tyrant could ever become too powerful. It forced everyone to compromise. We tend to look at the empire's borders and see weakness. We think, how on earth could they fight a war with 1,800 different armies? But the empire wasn't built for offence. It wasn't designed to conquer the world. It was built for internal peace. It was a giant legal system designed to stop its own member states from killing each other. Think about it like this. In the rest of Europe, if a big duke wanted to conquer a tiny city next door, he just did it. Might makes right. But in the Holy Roman Empire, that tiny city had a lawyer. If a powerful duke tried to invade a small independent city, the emperor and the imperial courts would intervene. They would rally the other states to protect the little guy. It was a collective security system. For centuries, this structure kept the peace in Central Europe, while the rest of the continent was tearing itself apart. It allowed culture to flourish. Because there was no single capital city like London or Paris, every little state wanted its own fancy court. This is why Germany today has opera houses, universities and palaces in dozens of different cities, not just in Berlin. But a system built on slow, careful tradition cannot survive a hurricane. In the early 1800s, that hurricane arrived, and his name was Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon represented everything the empire was not. He was modern, fast, centralised, and ruthless. When he marched into Germany, he looked at this complex medieval antique, and he didn't just defeat it. He smashed it. He defeated the emperor's armies and then took a red pen to the map. He forced the hundreds of tiny states to merge into about 30 medium-sized ones. He cleaned up the border gore with the stroke of a pen. Realizing the game was over, the last Holy Roman Emperor, Francis II, did the unthinkable. He didn't want Napoleon to steal the title, so he destroyed it. On August 6th, 1806, he abdicated and legally dissolved the empire. After 1006 years, the First Reich was gone. The Holy Roman Empire is often remembered as a failure because it didn't become a strong centralised nation-state like France. But that misses the point entirely. It wasn't trying to be a nation. It was a vehicle for diversity. It was a way for thousands of different identities to live together under one roof without killing each other. The reason modern Germany is a federal republic, where states like Bavaria still have their own strong identity and their own flag, is because of this empire. The map may have been a mess, but it was a mess that shaped the soul of Europe.
This is Be Explained. If you want history without myths or noise, subscribe, because the past still shapes the present, and here it is explained.